Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brief overview of data management and analysis, tools for success for a fire chief. My name is Jeremy Mitchell. This represents my course completion requirement for Executive Fire Officer 3 through Columbia Southern University and the International Association of Fire Chiefs. Just real quickly, kind of what we'll be talking over. Data management versus data analysis. What do both of those mean? They don't mean the same thing. The what, when, and why of data analysis. So, when are we going to collect data? What are we going to ask for? Things like that. Who performs these tasks? This is a new discipline in the fire service, and we need to talk a little bit about setting up your person who's going to do that with some steps for success and then some paths forward. If your department isn't doing these kinds of things right now, what can you be doing to set yourself up for success? First of all, data management and data analysis are not the same thing, and they're not necessarily done by the same person. In smaller departments, maybe your data manager is also your data analyst, but they're two different things, and skills don't necessarily translate. They're interdependent on each other, so poor data management practices are going to lead to poor data analysis. When we analyze data, we are going to try to generate insights that are going to help your organization achieve its goals. And if we're not managing the data well, if we're not cleaning it, etc., in a good way, you're not going to be able to draw good conclusions. Or, in other words, garbage in, garbage out. Data management deals with how an organization handles data, secures it, and makes it accessible. So, what data comes in? What do you do to it to make it usable by your organization? How do you keep it safe? And who do you show it to? So, how data is cleaned and sorted, ensuring high quality information. So, think about doing a QA or a QC on an NFIRS report or pretty soon an NARIS report, making sure that the data says everything that you want it to say in a way that you want it to look. Also, who do you share information with? So, obviously, the easiest one here is HIPAA. We don't want to be telling people anything about patient care information, things like that. We want to keep that private. There are some things, so fire investigation would be another example. You don't necessarily want to share all of your information with all of your stakeholders. So, what do you share? To whom are you sharing it with? And how much do you share? Those are things to think about. Data analysis is how we extract knowledge in the form of actionable insights from the collected and cleaned data. We want to avoid true but useless data. So think about 30 years ago when fire departments first started using data collection software. I won't mention any kind of specific ones. For the first time, fire departments were able to really record and store large amounts of data. And because they had that capability, they felt like they had to use all of that capability, and that's not always true. So, for example, if you said we performed X amount of hours of water supply training in a year, okay, fine, that's probably a true piece of information, but how does it impact your mission? So, are you better at performing the water supply? Are you engaging a water supply more quickly than you were before you started tracking this information? Things like that. So it tells you something about the organization, but it's not helping you toward more positive action. Analysis should prompt useful action, and this is something that's at NFPA. They talk about a lot. What gets measured gets funded. This is something that, particularly for fire chiefs, if you think you need more ambulances, you need to be able to measure and ask why. If you think you need to add another person to engine companies in high risk areas, you need to be able to show a number and explain why. So, your data analysis, when what you're measuring, is going to help you get the resources you need for the programs that you're trying to implement. What data should we collect? Just very briefly, your strategic decisions need to be guided by two kinds of data. Data about and within your organization, so about the fire department and the kinds of services you want to provide, and data about the population and the built environment you're serving. So, examples about your fire department: how effective is your training? We were at this level, we implemented alterations to our training program, now we're functioning at a higher level. Adequacy of resources. So if you are having a call for mutual aid or you are really relying on automatic aid as part of your building fire response, Is this a way for you to justify more resources? Something along those lines. About your jurisdiction, when you do a community risk assessment, which hopefully you're doing a community risk assessment at least every 3 years, demography, economy, geography, things like that, painting the picture of what type of community you're serving and what the local risks are. How often are we going to collect that data? Your needed data changes more often than you think. So so things like education level, whether or not it's young families in your town, income, education. This is changing in your city more often than people realize. And I say that as someone who gets to put his eyes on data from quite a few different jurisdictions. As a result, the risk picture in your town is going to change more often than you think. So doing your 5-year community risk assessment, just kind of burping out some annual reports based on call data and things like that, it's not sufficient for effective analysis and action. Someone who doesn't know how this data impacts your organization and the services you deliver probably isn't going to know. So if you have a council member who knows very little about the guts of data analysis and collection for public safety, they probably won't care. You might be able to skate. Chief, are you okay with skating, or do you want to be excellent at this? So that means you have to up your data collection and analysis game. Your risk assessment needs to be ongoing. So 3-year community risk assessment, 5-year community risk assessment, looking at your standard of cover, that just needs to be an ongoing process now. That is the name of the game in the fire service in 2025. And your data collection and analysis needs to be at least quarterly. I would not go much past that just because it changes so much. Monthly would be great, but if you're pushing it out past quarterly, then you're getting the information past when it's really going to help you. So who's going to analyze that data? Again, this decade has really seen the widespread acceptance of the need for fire and emergency services analysts as a separate and specific subject matter expert in your fire department. It doesn't need to be dumped on a junior officer or a recent promotees. So think about some less progressive organizations. The undesirable assignments get dumped on the new officers who have juniority, for lack of a better way of putting it. This is not that. If you do that, they aren't going to be interested in it. They aren't going to be engaged in it. And as we talk about in a second, they aren't going to have the knowledge, skill, and ability to do it well. For your data analysis program to work, this has to be a subject matter expert within your fire department. Data analysis is not apples to apples. This needs to be a fire department data analyst. You can't just get somebody from the planning department and hope that this is going to work. As we wrap up, some steps forward. First, for the fire chiefs, understand that this is not going away. If you're going to have success as a fire chief leading your organization, you have to be good at data management, data analysis, and then acting on the insights that you gain from that data. Second, talk to your elected leadership about this. To be frank, they're going to love you if you talk about you want to switch to a data-driven approach to providing public service. So this is going to help you with them, and also in terms of administration, service delivery, resource procurement, things like that. Third, find that person in your organization, find that data analyst and train them up. The Center for Public Safety Excellence has a Fire and Emergency Services Analyst designation now. That's a good starting point. NFPA last year published NFPA 1022, which is the standard for fire service analysts. So training exists out there now for these people. It's not just catch as you can. Decide what you want to measure based on your department's goals and objectives. And then lastly, once you've trained these people, you've gotten them the resources they needed, and you have the backing at City Hall, let your data analysts run with the ball and get you what you need. If you have any questions, you can find me at GTC Fire Prevention. Always willing to talk data with fire service leaders. Looking forward to seeing how you implement this in your organization. Thanks. Have a good afternoon.